This was inevitable as we have a major update surrounding the Toronto Maple Leafs as it pertains to one player in particular that not only has fans fired up, but this update changes the landscape of Brad Living's offseason plans going forward. We're going to break down exactly what that update is and discuss, of course, what this means going forward, as well as a few other interesting notes ahead of what's going to be a very interesting next few weeks. But before we get into it all, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. About 71% of you who are watching right now aren't subscribed. You guys have been absolute beasts of the support, and if you want to continue supporting, make sure to hit the subscribe button. There's a lot to go over today, and obviously there's some interesting conversations to be had surrounding one player, and that is Nick Robertson. And his name is going to be right at the forefront of conversations as the arbitration, everything like that continues to get underway here. But some big news came out yesterday that isn't directly related to the Leafs, but directly impacts the Leafs and their negotiations here. And it is former Leaf Connor Timmins. So he signed a 2-year contract with the Buffalo Sabres with an AAV of, yes, $2.2 million. This is the same Connor Timmins that started the season with the Leafs last year. And you can see here from Steve Dangley, sums it up pretty well. Starting to get the feeling that whatever Robertson's number is going to be, it's going to be north, rather, of whatever you are thinking. So, Darius, it's inevitable at this point that Nick Robertson's future in Toronto is over, I think, or bleak at the very least, following what is a rising cap and all these different things. In a world where Connor Timmins is getting $2.2 million, and we'll have some reports to go over later in this video, it seems that Nick Robertson's time in Toronto is going to be, probably coming to an end, given the fact that I cannot see a world where the Leafs pay what Robertson is going to be asking for. And at this point, rightfully deserves that Connor Timmins is getting $2.2 million, even though Connor Timmins did play more games than Nick Robertson last year.
Yeah, of course. And the salary cap is going up over the next couple of years. We've been talking about that a lot over the last couple of weeks, months at this point. So we have to keep that in mind. But at the same time, it's looking like Nick Robertson is going to get a lot more than we were thinking, and even the projections, which we'll show in a little bit as well. And I think that spells trouble for the Toronto Maple Leafs a little bit. Not necessarily trouble, but I think they might have to look at trading him at this point. And we've talked about it before. I think it was last week we were talking about maybe the Leafs end up keeping Nick Robertson because, a lot of us were really quick to say Robertson, he's out the door this year because of everything that happened last summer and his trade request, all of those things. But I'm not so sure about that, right? I don't know if you can find a guy that can put up as many points as him for what he was making and where he plays in the lineup, right? So I was like, maybe they just hang on to Nick Robertson at this point. But some of the contracts that are being signed over the last 24 hours or so is, putting some pause to that to me. I think maybe they look at trading him now. His arbitration hearing, let's not forget he filed for arbitration, is August 3rd. So that's coming up soon as well. So we're going to get an answer one way or another soon. And I think that they may end up looking at trading him because, look at the cap that the Leafs are trying to move out of the lineup right now in Calle Yarncroke, David Camp. Can they afford Nick Robertson at like almost $2 million? I'm not so sure, and I don't think that's the way they're trying to build this team. So I don't know if that makes sense. The other interesting I was thinking, given more ice time, more opportunity, is Nick Robertson the guy in the top six? I was thinking about that recently. I don't think he is, and I don't think it's the answer either. But I think it's something, interesting to think about. Could he do more with a better opportunity playing with better players? Because we've seen in the past, playing with Austin Matthews, he was putting up a lot of points and he looked really good. So I don't think that's the case, but I think it's an interesting, option they can consider. But I think ultimately, as we head towards August 3rd, I think they might actually look at trading him. But again, there's a lot of log jams, roadblocks, whatever you want to call them around the league that a couple dominoes have to fall for the Leafs to start making moves here. And we're heading into August, and this is around the time that I think, Brad Living wanted to make a big splash for a top six forward or get some moves, done, but they have to move a lot of salary first.
Yeah, and there's also this one here. You can see Elliot Freeman to buy $1.4 million for another player. 4 of the 6 players who elected to go to arbitration have now signed contracts. Nick Robertson has not. While there still is time before his hearing, I'd be shocked if the Leafs sign him. Seems like a trade or a team walks away from the ruling are the options right now. And I think his time in Toronto is over. I don't see him playing next year. They also have an abundance of bottom 6 guys, and in every lineup that we show from Puckpedia or whatever it is, we haven't had Nick Robertson in any of them because, of course, they still have David Kemp. They still have Calle Yarncroke. And, of course, things can change. His previous cap hit was at $875,000, and he requested a trade this time last year. So let's not forget that either. And it becomes interesting. So let's look at his projected cap by length. $1 million. That's about it because last year he made $875. He put up a total of course, some 22 points last year, 15 goals, 7 assists in 69 games, which realistically like isn't awful. 15 goals with a limited playing time and in and out of the lineup is intriguing for a lot of teams, I would assume. I don't know if the Leafs need that, which is the funny thing is they need goal scoring still, but Nick Robertson just doesn't fit Craig Berube's style of play whatsoever, which makes things super intriguing. With the cap going up, like I'd be curious to see what Connor Timmins' projection was. I can guarantee it wasn't $2.2 million, at least as of the most likely projection. Things are just being higher than what projections are saying because of the cap going up, and he's had some decent years. Last year wasn't great. Of course, 2023 under the Sheldon Keefe, when he got put in Keefe's dog cage there, wasn't great either, but he still put up 27 points, right? And last year he finished with a career high in goals. It's going to be interesting. At the end of the day, you mentioned it, the hearing date is August 3rd. I think they're going to try to work out a trade. And at the end of the day, I think his time in Toronto is going to be coming to an end. But it goes to show that a lot of these arbitration hearings, they're either ending in overpays slightly. I can't even call them overpays. It's just the way the market is. Overpays according to the stats, which lends very badly and very poorly for Nick Robertson.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that not poorly for him as a
for
player,
the team, yeah,
right? For the team, of course. Yeah. The player is going to make out well in this, I think. But for the Toronto Maple Leafs, you're probably going to have to look at trading him, like you said. And if you take a look at his stats again, over the last couple of seasons, he dealt with some injury troubles. That was the thing for a long time. He's not going to be able to stay healthy, right? Obviously, he had a season-ending injury a couple seasons ago, too. And then he was back and forth, yo-yoing him between the Marlies and the Maple Leafs. Finally looks like, not looks like, we know he's an NHL player. Like, he can play in the NHL, and he should probably be a top 6 player, maybe somewhere else. We've talked about this a lot. And, for people who've been around on the channel a long time, I'm a big Nick Robertson guy. But last season in more games put up less points, although career high, like you said, in goals. So that is encouraging. But, that's a lot of what you're getting from Nick Robertson. And especially, a lot of people are saying scratch and score right now. We see that as well. So you scratch him, he scores a couple goals, stuff like that. You want that consistency out of him, right? So I just think that the vision for the bottom 6 is a little bit different now. I think it's really changed from last year to this year. I think with the circumstances of last year and how, handcuffed Brad Living was with the cap a little bit, obviously you wanted to keep Nick Robertson and just keep him around. You weren't going to get anything for him in a trade. But I think this time around, I think they have a different vision for this team heading into next year. They want them to look and play differently and think differently. So I think that Nick Robertson is going to be a casualty of that. And again, if you look at all the projections, if you look at what people are making, like certain players are making right now through arbitration and signing throughout the summer, he is going to make a lot more than people realize. I think a lot of people are thinking, oh, he's going to sign for under $1 million again. He's going to sign for exactly $1 million. But if he's making almost $2 million, or $2 million, I don't think the Leafs can afford that in their bottom 6 for what he brings. Not that he's not a bad player, right? So, he's going to go somewhere else and score a ton of goals, but I think they ultimately look at trading him. And honestly, his value I think is pretty decent for what he is. I think they can get something pretty decent for him. But one of the better producers playing the minutes that he plays and where he plays in a lineup. So I feel like they'll probably get some. They have some interesting trade chips, right? Like David Kampf, Calle Yarncroke. They don't excite me personally, but we know what we have in them. So I don't know how other teams are feeling about them, but even Nick Robertson, I think that could be exciting for another team that's in the middle of a rebuild or something like that. So it's going to be interesting as we head towards August 3rd, and I think there's going to be some dominoes that are going to fall around the league that Brad Treliving can then pounce, start making moves. And I think August is going to be the time for that. Because, throughout the summer, Brad Treliving was kind of on a 1 move per week quota, and he's kind of slowed down a little bit. So I think it's going to pick up in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and obviously there's some fans who want Nick Robertson because of his abilities. Again, good advanced analytics. It'll be interesting to see. Let us know down below what your thoughts are on all this. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.